cafe and I saw this beautiful woman wearing traditional Ghanaian headdress, and this was the first time that we ever met.
Every project we started at first principles, asking the why, and it brings a freshness.
For me, AI has made me reconsider the whole notion of intelligence. I think we're at a time now similar perhaps to at the time when Darwin first proposed that in fact human beings evolved from animals.
How do you see both AI shaping architecture in the next decade? And where does human intuition still lead the process?
Work and play inside of our buildings. And the key to great design is just
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat and welcome back to the show. I'm Monica Marabi and today we're diving into a conversation that goes beyond aesthetics, exploring where architecture meets strategy, sustainability, and human experience. In this episode, we'll unpack what it really means to design with purpose, when creativity serves not just beauty but meaning, longevity, and impact. I am joined by two incredible voices who've built their practice around exactly that philosophy. They are the co-founders of Integrity Design, Ben Piper and Priscilla. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben and Priscilla, it's such a pleasure to have you both here. Welcome to UAP Lines and Legacies. I'm going to jump right in to the questions. Don't worry. They're easy. You both had remarkable journeys across different countries and leading design firms before founding Integrity. How did your paths converge, and what was the shared vision that brought you together?
Well, our paths actually converged on Priscilla's graduation day.
Oh.
And so she had graduated from the Architectural Association, and a friend of mine, Samson, was in London and invited me over to a cafe, and I saw this beautiful woman wearing traditional Ghanaian headdress and clothes. And it was on the day that Priscilla was graduating, and this was the first time that we ever met. So in terms of our convergence, it started from there. But then it took a number of years to get to know each other a little bit better, and develop our let's say understanding of each other, and we decided to form an architectural practice from there.
Yeah. It's been 20 years since that moment, and there's a lot that's attributed, I think, to Abraham Lincoln, where he says, if you need to cut down a tree in 6 hours, spend 4 hours sharpening the blade. And so, it's been 20 years in this region, crafting our skill, learning, sharpening that blade, and Integrity, brings together all the things that we sort of learned, experienced, and what was a pillar of the foundations of the company.
That's such a great story. I love hearing how a philosophy can grow out of shared experience. And what made the UAE the right home for your practice? How has the region's pace, ambition, and diversity shaped your approach over the years?
Well, I think when we first came to the UAE, we were absolutely staggered by the rate of change in the city. In fact, the interesting thing, I should say Dubai, the rate of change in Dubai. And I've always been somebody that's moved around the world as a child. I lived in many different places, and I've got a restless spirit and an insatiable curiosity for different parts of the world, to see and live in different parts of the world. But one of the amazing things about Dubai is that it actually changes so quickly that you can stand still in the city and the city will change around you. So effectively, you are moving to a different city by not leaving Dubai.
That's so true, yeah.
And so when we came here about 20 years ago, we stayed in the Pearl residence in Bur Dubai, and at the time Burjuman the new Bergerman had recently opened, and it was like the most incredible sort of retail space. And I think that it was immediately apparent how much opportunity there was as architects here to make a difference and be given the responsibility from clients and the city at large to wield material and bring that material together in a beautiful way, in a way that serves the city and serves the people that live and work inside our buildings.
That's so true.
You know, Dubai has such incredible energy, and I think different cities have different energies, and it has a very kinetic energy, pace, clients with, ambitious visions, and, everything wants to be done yesterday. But it's one of those places where, your imagination is the limit. And so it's an exciting place to be, to practice architecture. It's changing. It's forcing us to think about new ways to create buildings that are adaptable, innovative, and we get a thrill.
It's fascinating how a place can influence philosophy, especially in a city like Dubai, where design and innovation evolve so fast. Let's talk about your strategy and process. The name Integrity says a lot. It feels like more a brand. It feels like more than a brand. It's like a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Ben and Priscilla, how do you both approach strategy in architecture so that creativity always supports a project's larger purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's a client's vision, a community need, or a cultural narrative.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We think it's very important to approach what we do with a set of principles, because without principles, you don't have a reference for decision making. And the most important thing when it comes to making decisions, design decisions, or any decision really, is the ability to refer to your principles. Now, different people have different principles, and we respect that, but we've spent a lot of time trying to develop our own principles. And so these are our guiding stars when it comes to the decision making of the practice. So this is point one. Point two is that we believe that design is fundamentally a very collaborative process. And if the process is perfected, then the design will look after itself. So we spend more time thinking about, first of all, why are we going to do something? And then how are we going to do it? And then the what is a natural consequence of that. We actively try not to think too far ahead in terms of what the design will be, because it will actually emerge from the process and emerge from the principles that we apply.
Mm-hmm. And this idea of having sort of preconceived ideas about, where the journey is going to end, we try to avoid completely. And every project we start at first principles, asking the why. And it brings a freshness. We want to find new ways to solve problems. And the why is really, really important. And in terms of our principles, it is as Ben says, our guided star. And these principles resonate with people, and people that share those principles come and join us, and magic can be created.
Thank you. When you're balancing creative ambition with practical goals, how do you make sure the original intent stays intact from concept through execution?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we are very proud of is that we will never present a concept that we don't have a very clear idea about how to resolve and deliver. So, for example, if you think about the marketing imagery that's sometimes presented at a relatively early stage in a project, where the client is demanding an almost photorealistic impression of a building that hasn't been designed yet. At that point, we really actually expedite certain aspects of the design, for example, the landscape or the facade, because these are very visible in these kinds of illustrations. And we don't like disappointing our client, or even, for that matter, the end user, by having an end design that's different from the proposed concept or the marketing image. And so, of course, we like to present innovative, unusual, fresh kinds of designs, but it's also very important that we're thinking about the pragmatics from the very beginning so that we can deliver on the promise. That's very important to us.
Well, that partnership between vision and delivery really defines strong leadership. Integrity for you is clearly a practice, not just a name. Thank you for that. How about we jump into AI, innovation, and the future? Let's talk about AI because it's shaping how we all work. How has AI begun to influence your process at Integrity, from concept to construction or operations?
Well, I think for me, AI has made me reconsider the whole notion of intelligence. I think we're at a time now similar perhaps to at the time when Darwin first proposed that in fact human beings evolved from animals. And prior to that, there was this conception that animals and human beings are fundamentally different. But Darwin essentially said we're all part of the same ecological system. We're all part of the result of natural selection and evolution. So there's been this similar division between machine intelligence and call it human intelligence. Even the expression AI, it's artificial intelligence, as if there's some fundamental difference between organic AI, organic intelligence or human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And I think that of course they are different, but they actually make me reflect more on the way that my own thinking takes place. And it is quite interesting in architecture. Many of the things that we do are quite, they're quite, I would call them the synthesis. For example, I think we can all agree as designers and architects, we've been using the internet for image search and precedent moods and things. And this is absolutely a core part of the way that design has been working now for the last 10 years or more, 20 years, let's say. And so what I notice is with all of these AI tools, effectively it's starting to automate that process. So whereas before we might gather something from Pinterest and start patching it together as a collage in Photoshop by hand, the AI is effectively doing that now it seems miraculous, but it's actually the same process, just automated. For example, people talk about parametric design, but all design is parametric. There's always been some kind of requirement for the design and some kind of response. But what's interesting with tools like Grasshopper and other automated parametric approaches is that one is able to use the power of the computer to generate new relationships between the parameters that were maybe not that they were impossible, but that they were much more challenging to achieve before.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I think the other thing that has changed me from interacting with AI systems, as you might say, is the need to be articulate. I never thought that there would be a relationship between English language or English literature and architectural design, but now I'm finding I'm recalling words maybe from my youth reading sci-fi books and fantasy, talking about for example the ruddy sun on the horizon. So the word ruddy means a kind of red and rusty dark kind of color, and these are very kind of special and specific descriptive words that one didn't really need to use in a non-literary sense. And now it's all about how articulate can you be so that the machine understands what you're saying and essentially program that machine very, very clearly and specifically with what you're after.
Yeah, these prompts are very important. Like there's already classes on these prompts.
Yes, I think it's a new class of designer, a prompt, a prompt specialist. I think is a new evolution.
We'll be back after a short word from our sponsors.
Alex, we live in Dubai,
Yes, we do.
a popular, well-known city.
Yes, it is.
And I'm sure a lot of people have asked you, when you come to Dubai, what is there to do? What do you eat?
You know what, Irene? Now that I think about it, people should visit the newly renovated Dubai Fountain. even before it was renovated, was spectacular.
Already was, yes.
But now it's just on a whole new level.
Oh, that's exciting to see.
Exactly. How about you?
I would, of course, recommend the hotspots like the Burj Khalifa, Burj Al Arab, and
Dubai Frame.
Dubai Frame, yeah, to see the old side of Dubai as well.
I would take them on a desert safari.
Oh, that's
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And with the cold seasons coming,
that'd be perfect.
that would be very perfect for families and for lovers or for whatnot.
Yeah. And how about for food? What cuisine do you recommend here?
Everything's here in Dubai. You have Indian food, you have Lebanese food, you have
Yeah.
Filipino food, you have everything here. But I would recommend they try shawarma here in Dubai.
Yes. I think it's a bit underrated when you're outside, or maybe overrated when you hear about it, but shawarma really is legit here. So we do recommend.
Yes, we do.
And did you know that all of this is possible if you book through MPQ Tourism?
Really? Do tell.
So they can plan your entire 7-day itinerary from your arrival to departure. They'll take care of your hotel, your schedule for the day, and when you transfer to different cities, it's all taken care of. And MPQ Tourism, they happen to be our sponsor for today's video.
That is so amazing. For more information regarding MPQ Tourism, just refer down to our podcast show notes.
Yeah, thank you, MPQ Tourism.
Thank you, MPQ Tourism.
And now we're back to the episode.
Ben, this is for you. With your computational design background, how do you see AI affecting the creative process itself? Does it enhance human intuition or challenge it?
Well, I think it's a really interesting question. My original motivation for getting involved in computer human interface design, it was a bit of a departure from architecture, and I experienced in my first years of architectural practice after leaving college quite a disillusionment, actually. Because I had got into architecture because I liked making things, and I liked making things with people, and I liked using my hands, and I loved material. And I found that in the first year or two of, let's say, professional practice and junior roles, I was spending my entire time just sitting behind a computer, either learning MicroStation or AutoCAD or ArchiCAD or moving on to the next kind of software. Actually, I was laying out toilet tiles in one job where they had been designed in imperial measurements, but the tiles were metric on site. So this was one of these like wipe on, wipe off task, like the guy in Karate Kid. But my point is that as somebody who loves material, loves collaboration, and loves making things, this experience of sitting on a computer was very disappointing. Not only from the loss of kind of interaction, but even from a physiological perspective, just sitting in an office all day long, it's not healthy. And so I decided to explore the possibility of changing the computer interface, because the power of the computer is fantastic, but there's many ways of interacting with computational systems, not only through the screen and through the mouse. And so I developed some studies into what were called tangible media interfaces, where you used the full dexterity of your hand, you used the collaborative space where multiple people could come to the work area, and developed a project called Illuminating Clay, which was essentially a typical standard clay material, but it was being laser scanned for its geometry, and then computational information was being projected onto it. So as you manipulated the clay, the computer was analyzing the surface and projecting information. So you were able to interact with essentially computational systems. And I think, this brings us on to an interesting aspect of, let's say, design, intuition, intelligence, as it were. When we're young, we spend a lot of time playing with things. Playing with things is essentially testing them, testing the properties of a ball or water or walking along some structure or something, and you're essentially testing their boundaries. But when you are dealing with larger scale systems. I mean, for example, the rising tides of global due to global warming, or you look at buildings under some kind of seismic event or wind loading. These are systems that are outside of the ability to interact through normal physical experience.
Yes.
But if you generate computational systems that allow you to play with these larger-than-life entities like the forces of wind or earthquakes and so forth, then you start to build an intuitive understanding of them, as opposed to just running one simulation, two simulation. You're running continuous simulation and testing the whole, space of possibilities. But I think that to come back to your question, sorry, I went a little bit
we
off.
like that.
A little bit off
Definitely.
on one. But one of the things I remember, the very first day I got an iPhone, probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe longer, I downloaded a thing called GarageBand on there. And I was like, wow, now I've got every instrument in my pocket. And I used to play guitar quite seriously as a teenager, and I still get the guitar out around the campfire every once in a while. And as a young musician, I would spend hours and hours and hours practicing to try to get a certain kind of sound out of the guitar. And then this tool that GarageBand gives you that same sound, but with so little, let's say, effort. And I think that there's this interesting relationship between effort put in and emotional relationship to what comes out. And take, for example, there was a time that when you got a perfect render, it might have taken a month of comments back and forth to the human rendering agency.
Yeah.
And after that month, it's like, oh, that's an absolute killer render. That's a beautiful piece. And then there was a journey in the process. And now there's this strange thing where it is, we're finding it now with some of the AI tools that we're able to make these magical renders with so little effort in comparison. And it's like, oh, well, what about the journey? What about the emotional involvement? What about that kind of seeking this higher level? And we've kind of landed there so quickly. And so
It's this idea of shaping our spaces and shaping architecture, that kind of hands-on tactile quality. But I think it forces us to sort of think about, what is the essence, of our designs. And the thinking process becomes much more important. We have the ability to test a lot of iterations, but it is the why that becomes more important, and the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of our time at Integrity really focusing on, the why.
Yeah, I think it's really important because in this, it's essentially the infinite possibility that's opened up with AI systems, that you can render, re-render, redesign, reform as many times as you like with very, very little effort. It means you really need to know when you've arrived where you wanted to be. And if you don't know where you're going in the world of AI, we have a kind of a phrase in the office.
Possibilities.
Yeah, it's a sort of AI black hole, actually. If you go out there looking for something, but you don't know what it is, you'll be stuck there forever. But if you know what it is that you're looking for, not necessarily visually, but you know what it is that you're looking for in terms of its intent, or in terms of its purpose, or its principles, or its meaning, and then you say, I am looking for something that does this. What would it look like if those various things came together? And then, aha, okay, I'm happy with that because it meets the criteria. But if you go hunting without clarity in the infinite space of AI, you can be quite lost, I think. I feel it myself. And we even have in the office, let's AI this, but let's spend only 1 hour. And after 1 hour, that's it.
That's good.
And so one has to be a little bit disciplined with these things.
I mean, it's inspiring to hear how you see technology as an amplifier of creativity rather than a replacement. Looking ahead, how do you see both AI shaping architecture in the next decade? And where does human intuition still lead the process?
I think we are always going to be at the center of it. It's that thought process, that clarity, as Ben was talking about, knowing when you arrive. And so I think it's been, AI technology in the future is going to help us, have those iterations, test, have a look at dashboards, see how we're performing. But it still requires us to, to set the rules, the parameters, and understand, when we achieve, what the goals are. So I'm very excited about this new landscape. It's fresh.
Yeah.
It's forcing us to sort of look at the tools, rethink, and it's very exciting. I enjoy how, we interviewed someone, I think it was yesterday, and very very fresh ideas are coming through from the younger generation, and creating that kind of synthesis between the future is very exciting.
I think that there was a time that people would go to the movies just to see special effects. They'd say, the story was terrible, but the effects were amazing. And I would go to see such a movie because, it's a visual feast kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now it's so easy to have this special effects, visual feast type of thing. It's completely superficial. It's not interesting anymore. There's no journey to get there. When we saw Avatar, this was like, my gosh, we've never seen anything like this before. Now you can just, make a feature-length movie with a script kind of thing. So I think what it means, or what it leads to, is that people are much more interested in narrative than they were before. And this what is the learning, what is the message, what is the meaning, is much more important now. And I'm so happy that with these AI tools, it's essentially flattened the whole market between people who render beautifully or not, and it's no longer about the quality of the render. There's so many projects that were awarded based on, let's say, a good quality render as opposed to a good quality idea. Now, with the flattening of this AI systems, it's really about the idea and the content that makes the difference.
Thank you for sharing the balance between heart and data. As we start to unwind and wind down, this conversation brings us back to why we fell in love with architecture in the first place. Because it has the power to connect people, purpose, and place. Just the last question. Before we wrap up, I'd love a final thought from each of you. What advice would you give to the young architects who want to create work that's not only strategic, but as well human, deeply human? From AI to human.
I'd ask them to think about why. And it is that the power of the narrative, why they're doing something. That storytelling is what the meaning is what makes it. The seeking of meaning is what makes us human.
Yes.
And it's so important that in designing we're not just creating buildings. Anyone can create buildings. There's a difference between buildings and architecture. What is that difference?
Yes.
And that will create designers that will create incredible buildings, architecture. So I would spend more time thinking, testing, and storytelling is incredibly important. As architects, we are master storytellers. We come up with these incredible visions, but that story must go not from just the concept. We have to be able to communicate that idea, that intent, that passion,
Yes.
so that it feeds all the way through to the people on site that are building it. We have to inspire. We have to create strong narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And just to follow on from what Priscilla is saying, I think a couple of things I'd like to highlight. One is that I remember when I was at college, I was walking through a car park with a friend of mine, and he was pointing out on the horizon a tower block with some twinkling lights in it. And he said to me, It's amazing, isn't it, what a generous profession architecture is. Essentially, we're designing for people that we'll never meet. We'll never say, "Oh, thank you very much," and we do it out of a kind of a general empathetic feeling for humankind. And I would say to young architects, young and aspiring architects, what we do is essentially very simple. We empathize with the people that will live inside of our buildings, live, work, and play inside of our buildings. And the key to great design is just to empathize with that person who is essentially you, with slight differences, or we all have different requirements. But it's empathizing with those people that will one day use your building as a framework for living. And you can't really go wrong if you're designing for yourself and giving it to somebody else. And I think the second point Priscilla made was there's an emotional content. And maybe it is the thing that makes us different from these increasingly sophisticated AI systems. We have this layer in us called emotion and feeling. It's very difficult to say what that means and where it comes from. But one of the essential roles of the architect, like the conductor of the orchestra, I used to see the conductor and think, what is this guy doing, waving his hands around and being dramatic? I mean, just let the orchestra play. They don't need this guy. But now, at this point in life, I've started to understand the role. On one hand, the role is a master musician who can hear the music of every instrument clearly, or even more clearly than the player themselves. This is point number one. Point number two is it's somebody to keep time, a beat, so everybody's working in step. And point number three is that it's a conduit for human emotion. The conductor is essentially the conduit through which the music is flowing and is emotionally inspiring the orchestra. So for the young and aspiring architect, remember that role of leadership, which is to inspire everybody from your collaborating architect to the client, to the project manager, to the contractor, to the glazing installer, and ultimately to the end user of the building. So I think that's what we try to do in our practice. We try to inspire people and be inspired.
Thank you. I love that. Ben, Priscilla, thank you both for such an inspiring exchange. You've reminded us that beyond aesthetics lies something deeper, a responsibility to design with empathy, intelligence, and integrity. Thank you again. And thank you to everyone who's listening today. Thank you for joining us on UAP Lines to Legacies. Salamat ng marami. Until next time.
Lines to Legacies is a production by the United Architects of the Philippines Dubai chapter. It's directed by me, Alexis Reyes. Edited by Marvin Verses and Surzan James Gulay. Research and writing by Katrina May Lim and Marivic Matiliano. Hosted by Alexis Reyes, Irene Domingo, and Monica Murebi. Special hosts are Patrick Soriano and Carmina Austing Mamangun. Guest coordination by Van Adrian Latigay. Social media managing by Norlene Clarice Felizario and Edna Marie Obdinalia. Production design by Onofre Yao and Junilin Gallio. Operations by Christian Garcia. Introduction is by Camila Latigay. And beat produced is by Patrick Soriano. Follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Lines to Legacies. See you next time on another episode of Lines to Legacies, a production by United Architects of the Philippines Dubai chapter.